In 2021, most of us look forward to a post-COVID world. As it turned out, that was the biggest disappointment of the year. In 2022, more instability and uncertainty awaits.
So the first positive case of Omicron has been detected in Malaysia.
Hi, I'm Frankie. Welcome back to my fuck show. What's on the horizon in 2022? From major political power shifts to winding back easy money, people adapting to hybrid working style, and the possibility of GE15. Here are the key events that will shape the year in 2022. This year, China will challenge America's global leadership, both economically and politically. Since the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis, the US has engaged with so many rounds of quantitative easing, pumping over $8 trillion into the banking system to keep the economy running. We all know that this strategy didn't turn out to be as effective as expected. I mean, if it was, they wouldn't have done so many rounds of money printing, right? Over the years, it is safe to say that whatever money that was printed was merely enough for the US to combat its internal economic cracks. On the other hand, with the strong reserve that China has, the communist economy has been spreading its influence with the Belt and Road Initiative, buying up assets all around the world. Today, the US dollar is not pegged to gold, but rather the slim trust that the world has with the US. Can the trust hold? I don't know. One thing for sure, Biden is going to face a midterm election this year. Some experts think that the president may lose the razor-thin majority. And if that happens, the US may fall into a dysfunctional, divided government. It is for this reason that many people are starting to see cryptocurrencies as an alternative to protect the value of their wealth against the US dollar. On the other side of the Pacific, China is portrayed to be progressive, safe, and vibrant even during the pandemic. Those are the ingredients that allow China to potentially march towards the pole position to be the world's top superpower. Now you may think, what is it going to do with us here in Malaysia? Well, the world is flat, baby. In fact, as a trading partner to the world's superpowers, all the happenings around the world have an implication to Malaysia. If there's one thing that the government did right in Malaysia, it would be the close international relations that Najib has established with China during his regime. Having a pro-business relationship with China will benefit Malaysia in terms of infrastructure developments going forward. Zooming into the corporate level, many of our local businesses, especially tech companies, are starting to set up operations in China to either tap into the Chinese market or to use it as a gateway to the rest of the world. Inflation is the side effect of too much easy money in the system. Consumer prices in the US jumped 4.2% in the 12 months through to April. Not to mention that the number has now reached a record of 6.8% in November 2021. The rest of the world is not too far off from the US. Most countries are experiencing hyperinflation one way or another. Many of you must be thinking, inflation good what? Inflation means the economy is growing. But what happens when inflation goes out of control?
Hiç ben bu kadarına rezalet bir hayat görmedim. Akşam yatıyor.
That is what is happening in Turkey today. Watching the Turkish experience, many governments in the world are trying very hard to tame inflation. In the US, the Fed is expected to raise the interest rate this year to tighten money supply. When there is less money circulating in the economy, hopefully this could keep inflation in check. Now, if you could invest your money in anything and the US dollar FD rate is on the rise, what would you do?
Honestly, I don't know.
For me, I will convert some of my funds into US dollar and benefit from the higher rate. Imagine the world doing that all at the same time. The US dollar is going to shoot up the roof against many other currencies, and that causes a different set of problems. In order to protect local currencies from fluctuating too much against the dollar, other countries will likely increase their interest rate in tandem with the US dollar to ensure forex stability. But then, higher interest rate means more expensive for businesses to borrow, and that is going to eat into their profitability. For stocks that are already seem expensive, it's going to look even more pricey with lower profits. Would their share prices crash? Or the market is okay with this kind of valuation? In the Malaysian stock market, the risk structure of equity ownership has shifted from institutional investors to retailers. Do you know that last year alone, retailers were net buyers of Malaysian equities worth 10 billion ringgit, compared to a net sell from fund managers worth 8.3 billion. So, you are the one who is going to make the call for the rise and fall of share prices, especially on small cap stocks. The last election was held in 2018, where the PH managed to break BN's regime since Malaysia gained independence in 1957. But the tenure was short-lived, as most politicians were dragged into a power tussle which created political uncertainty in the country.
It's been 24 hours of political turmoil in Malaysia. The government is in limbo with Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad resigning. The ruling Pakatan Harapan coalition has lost its majority after a walkout by at least 11 MPs.
4 years down the road, some people are saying that it is time to hold the next general election so that the people could come to the polls again to vote for the candidates who could represent them. If I'm the government of the day and I did a great job in the last 4 years, the incentive for me to hold a general election is super high because I know I have a high chance of winning. But no. That is not the case for the current government. First of all, the current government that we have today technically does not have the mandate of the people to govern. Instead, they became the government thanks to katak lombats. You know who you are and you should be ashamed of that.
No, I'm ashamed.
Anyways, back to our story. So far, the current government managed to portray not so favorable outcomes in many aspects of managing the country. For example, when the vast majority of the people unhappy with the policymakers, having a general election in 2022 is a career suicide. I think they will probably drag their time until the very last minute to call for GE15, which will probably be next year. And in the meantime, hopefully time will dilute people's anger from the government's mistakes. In politics, it's all about feel-good factors. As investors, this is when you look out for news flow about big contracts, mega infrastructure developments, cash handouts to boost economic activities, and tie them back to how businesses can benefit from it. Who knows? Maybe they will even revive the high-speed rail project. After 2 years of lockdown, it seems that most companies are going to adopt hybrid working arrangements between home and offices. As an individual, I'm starting to get used to things like online shopping, grabbing my meals, and even watching most of the blockbusters at the comfort of my couch instead of hitting the cinema. That means technology that supports what we could do at home will thrive in 2022. To the extreme of it, if there's one word to describe this tech, it would be Metaverse. But at this juncture, the more realistic version would be things like augmented reality, AI, and the Internet of Things. To give you a perspective, Chinese New Year is coming, and we are still unable to meet friends and family living overseas due to travel restrictions, thanks to the pandemic. Imagine we could bring them right in front of the reunion dinner table with augmented reality and ask Alexa or Siri to play some Chinese New Year music in the background. That's what I'm talking about for 2022. In order to make that happen, it requires some hardware and software upgrades, which means more demands for electronic sensors and more advanced chips. The point I want to make is that 2022 will still be a year for tech. However, remember the world was on a global chip shortage issue last year? Many companies are plowing in capital to build more capacity to cater for this new norm in 2022. The danger here is when so many companies increase capacity at the same time, we may face a temporary oversupply of chips as we go along. This overexpansion phenomenon is seen so many times throughout history, from the oil and gas crash in 2014 to the oversupply of rubber gloves last year. I can safely say that history will repeat itself in the tech sector. So, while we are all hyped up with new fancy tech, be mindful of the pace of electronic components are flooding the market this year. Also during the pandemic, many people were laid off, losing their source of income.
A recent survey in May revealed that more than 2 million Malaysians are expected to end up unemployed.
In response to this, the government has declared a loan moratorium to people who are facing cash flow issues with their daily expenses. This moratorium has come to an end in 2022, so everyone will start to service their loans again. The question is whether they have recovered from the pandemic and ready to repay their loans again. Personally, I doubt so. This becomes a test to the banking sector on whether their asset quality is still as strong as before. If more and more people start to default on their loans, I just couldn't imagine the impact on the economy. Moreover, the problem doesn't stop there. If enough people are not able to repay their loans, that means their spending power is lower as well. When they don't spend, the economy stalls. If the economy comes to a standstill, what do you think will happen to the stock market?
Everybody panic!
That's all we have for today. #fuck.